All right, welcome to the Two Squirrels podcast. It's me, Wilbur Lane, and got my partner here, Liam Pierce. And today we're going to be talking about it's just business, how to balance friendships and work relationships. So, what are you thinking?
Well, I think it's definitely an excellent topic for the simple fact that we all go through it. Speaking of real estate, we as broker owners, we have a tendency to create friends within our clients in general and our agents. And whenever we have that, it can complicate things.
I agree totally, especially someone like me who is a very relationship based, right? I am a relationship based salesperson, and I teach my agents to be relationship salespeople. So when we go through a transaction process, you get to know people. This is not something that happens immediately. Sometimes it takes you 30 to 45 days, sometimes even longer. So you get to know people on a more intimate level. And by the time you get to the closing table, to me, it's like if they're not inviting you over to the birthday parties and the Christmas parties and all of that, then you've done something wrong. That's my personal take on it. But not everybody's that type of person, and I understand that too.
Yeah, and I agree. And if you think of real estate, even traditionally it's you close it, you on to the next one, close it, on to the next one, and it's really detachment, right? But then what happens is, as you know, you've been there, I've been there, and I know plenty of people have. A lot of my coaching clients have been there as well. Is when you get so far in that detachment, you eventually burn out because you're constantly spending energy, you're spending wills trying to find new business. But when you cultivate and you're bringing people into that friendship area, that can also be exhausting too and complicate things.
Well, it could be a double-edged sword, right?
Yep.
So, because sometimes when you become the friend, they may not want to use you for business anymore, right?
Yeah.
Because we're dealing with intricacies of people's life, right?
Yep.
You gotta know their credit, you gotta know like their finances and that sort of thing. So when you cross over into the friendship zone, which guys hate the friendship zone, right? We don't,
Damn it.
we are already like predisposed to that. We don't want to hit that friendship zone. So when you cross over into that friendship zone, things do tend to change. I remember I had a client and we used to do everything together. We would like bake cookies together at their house, and we would go places, and we would hang out. And then when they decided to move again, they chose to use a different agent. And actually, they actually contacted me and asked me about the new agent that they were going to use,
Oh,
which, which was which was a little. I was taken aback just a little bit, but then I did, because I've been in the business a long time, and it takes you a minute to just say, hey, don't take this personal, right?
yeah.
It's a business decision for them as well too. And
Correct.
so that was the reason that they chose not to use me. And I do think it was because now I had crossed over into that friendship level. There was something different there. And it wasn't like they was picking any like Joe Blow off the street. I mean, this agent was really seasoned and could do the job well. So I had to look at myself and not take it personally at that point, right? I wanted them to achieve their goal, even if they wasn't going to me. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but
It does.
yeah, that's that, and it hurts your feelings a little bit. I mean, it's a blow to the ego, right?
Yeah. It is. I mean, and you hit it right on the head because think of just real estate specific, right? You're creating a friendship, especially since you're relationship oriented, which is, in my opinion, the best way to do this business. That way, we get out of that ugliness that's been treated for so many years. So, say you create a friendship, helping everybody through the transaction. You're really the glue that sticks it together and makes sure they get to the finish line, they get the house. You stay in contact with them. Just like even with your agents, once you enter the friend zone, it's hard for them to see you as anything else because before you're like, I'm the agent, I'm the agent, I'm the agent. Now we're friends, friends, friends. So it's easily forgotten that you're not the agent. Like it's easy to forget that you are the agent. I'm sorry, and you're also the friend. But
Right.
it's hard to separate the two. And being a broker owner, it happens with agents too. If you're leading the charge and you're helping them and you're helping them through success, it's very easy to become friends with those people because sometimes you're helping them with deeply personal items in order to move forward. And that's a good leader. However, once we start doing that, they start seeing us as equals and not the leader anymore. And that really complicates things and can hold them back, and not only that, us back. And even same thing with the client. They saw you as a friend now. So you're a friend, and they didn't categorize you as an agent, so they found a different agent.
Right. So how do you not take that personally? Like if you're somebody like me who is again relationship based, who is all about personality and getting along with people, and how do you not take that personally when someone sends their business elsewhere, or like you said, as an agent, they start looking at you in a different way, right? They don't like because there's you management,
Yep.
and then there's them learning from you, and there's supposed to be mutual growth there, but sometimes they get lost in the shuffle, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, and I think one of the ways that we can prevent that, even especially with clients, is we have to remind them that, yeah, we're cool, we hang out and we're friends, and of course I'd be there for you. But during this hour to this hour, I'm an agent. And we have to remind it. We have to set the expectations, the boundaries. When we do that, then there's complete separation. So the same thing with agents. Like, look, I'm here with you, where we might have had dinner or something like that outside of work hours. But during, say, 9 to 6, I'm the broker owner, or I'm the leader of this company, or whatever have you. But in my opinion and my experiences, setting the regulatory hours really helps out, especially with clients as well. It's the same thing. When you meet a client, say a buyer, in order so you don't consume all your hours for that one buyer, you set the expectations. Hey, I have other clients other than you, and these are my work hours, 9 to 6. If you need anything out after 6 p.m., shoot me an email. I'll check my email maybe once. Otherwise, I will check it in the morning.
I think you need to keep a healthy level of respect there, especially when we're talking about work relationships,
Yep.
and work friendships.
Yep.
I was just talking to an agent today, and she's a newer agent, and what I tend to find is that newer agents tend to be a little bit more timid, and so even if you're building this work relationship with them, the friendship comes along with it, and they get to a point with the newer agents, they get to a point where they feel like they don't want to bother you. So I feel like you really have to set those standards and boundaries up front. I've learned that over time, even with the seasoned agents. So like you said, maybe if you call me after 6 o'clock, it needs to be more of an emergency, right? So
Yes.
because we're leaving the office at 5:30. If you calling me at 6, 7, 8:30, then it needs to be more of an emergency, and it can't be something that can wait till tomorrow, right?
Yep.
And so I think that's a sort of a learned thing, and then you as management, you kind of have to set that tone up front, because I don't think people know that for some reason. Like, I don't think they know it naturally, especially when you're building friendships with them. They feel like, okay, well, it's 10 o'clock at night, I can give Will a call, right?
Yep. Yep.
That's not what you really want
No.
as the broker, because if you have a certain number of people working for you, and I say it broker, but whatever level of management you may be, if you have a certain number of people working for you, if you set that tone, then it's not just one person calling you; it's 3, 4, 5, 6 people calling
Yep.
you at that time, and that can be a problem.
Yeah. And just think of this, like when we first open up, and again, I'm going to stay, real estate on this one. Let's say I just opened my brokerage. A good person, in my opinion, is going to try to bring in people and be there available and, really help cultivate these people, be available all hours. And it's a beautiful thing because you really want to help them. You want to be available for them. However, as you start bringing in more agents, you start becoming thinner and thinner and thinner, and then it complicates things because at some point in growth, now you got to maybe bring someone in, hire them as, say, operations manager, right, to help out. Well, now if the operations manager's job is to really help the agents and govern the agents, and you're pulling back, that can be disruptive. That can cause a whole slew of problems. So and you tell me what your thoughts on this, but I think bringing in people and setting the expectation up front, like, hey, we have work hours, we have non-work hours, we really set the theme. I think that could alleviate a lot of these, personal versus business, even in whether they're clients or agents or whatever have you. What are your thoughts?
No, I agree with you totally. If you can set the tone up front as the manager slash broker, I think that helps out a lot. And it took time for me to get there, because when there's so much adrenaline, right? When you like first start something, or if you get a management position and you're over certain people, like there's a certain bit of adrenaline that comes with it, right? Because
Yeah.
people are relying on you, and you're basically responsible for them. So and they do look at you in certain ways. Like, I was just talking to an agent, and one thing she said about me, she said, "I love you because you are the most approachable person that I've ever worked for." And I work hard on that personally. Like, I like for the people who are working with me, partnering with me, to feel like that they can come to me and they can talk to me about anything, right? They may not choose to do so. That's totally up to them. But if they got problems on the job, if they got problems that ain't work related, like, they can come talk at least, right?
Yep.
Not saying that I'm willing, that I can help them all the time, but at least that avenue is there. So, but like I said, sometimes you have to be careful, because people take kindness for weakness, right?
Yes.
That is something you deal with if you are a kind person. Um, and then how do you deal with that aspect of it? Like, how do you deal with the person that may see you as a weaker person, because you are forming these friendships with people inside the office? Because some people think that should be totally separate, right? Like, we shouldn't go out and party together because one, you work for me, or I work for you, or vice versa. I mean, you have that thought as well.
Yeah, and I think many years ago I did retail, and whenever I got into management, I was taught not to go to lunch with subordinates, like people
Right.
that worked for you, right? Because it causes that complication. Once they see you as a friend, this kind of ties back. Once they see you as a friend, it's hard to see you as anything else. And I think there's pros and cons to both. So I try my best to separate that too, and sometimes it gets a little blurry, of course. But I think it's still setting those expectations. It's always going to tie back into that. And not only that, speaking of like real estate brokers, you got to make sure you bring in the right people. I always say bring in your tribe. Stop trying to just recruit. That's a way to tank your business, in my opinion. And I've seen it time and time again where, I had a conversation not long ago with a brokerage. They had, I think it was 80 some people, and they closed 40 some transactions. How does that make sense? Right? You're bringing in some people that just don't fit your culture, that don't fit your office. So if you bring the right people in and you set the expectations up front, I think it really helps out. Because if you, and I'm going to flip the script a little bit, like say, for example, how you said, they love you because you're approachable. And that's amazing. That's fantastic. But what happens because you're approachable when you have to flip it over and be the firm person? What is the recourse, right? If you're like, you've got to put your foot down and you got to stomp this down before it becomes a problem. How does that usually work out? I mean, have you experienced something like that?
Yeah, I mean, it's all personality based. You have some people that are going to be receptive when you have to be stern with them, and then you have others that no matter how you put something to them, they're going to take it in a negative light, right?
Yeah.
And we, especially as salespeople, we have to be good at reading people. Like, we have to reflect who we're dealing with. And especially when you're a broker slash manager, it's the same thing. If I'm dealing with 50 agents, not all those agents are going to have the same personality, right? I
Yeah.
can probably be way more blunt with one person, and then another person, I'm gonna have to figure out how to communicate with them because if I say, hey, you need to do this way, they're gonna break down and start crying in front of me, right? So I can't take that approach, and it's up to me as the leader to know who I'm dealing with, right? There's some
Yeah.
people I can say, hey, I need you to do this for me, and I know that's all I got to say. They're going to go out and handle it. And another
Yep.
person, I'm going to have to give them step 1 through 10, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's reflecting who you're speaking with and knowing who you're speaking with. And sometimes, brokers may not even have the ability to get to know everybody that works for them on a personal level, right? If
Yeah.
I got 100 agents, can I really get to know every one of those agents on a personal level? Probably not. It's going to be hard. um, but I think more importantly than that is communication, right?
Yeah.
Are you someone that they can reach when they need to reach you? And
Yeah.
I think that's important to a lot of my people, and they feel like they can. Whether we're 10 people or whether we're 100 people, they want to know if they need Wilbur, they can reach Wilbur, right? I think
Yep.
that is more important than anything because I've talked to a few people and they were like, they didn't even know who their broker were. I mean, I've done interviews with people who was like, who you work for? Like, I'm with such and such brokerage, but they didn't even know who the broker was. So it's like, how did you stay there so long? You never talked to your broker, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
To me, that's a little odd, but to some people, it may not be that big of a deal.
Yeah, and I think that's where the business model comes in. If you go more what I would say is an outdated business model, and that might piss people off, but honestly, you know me, I don't give a shit. Um, the older outdated model, in my opinion, where you're just a revolving door, you're bringing people in, people coming out. No, there's really no growth together. It's just in out, in out, in out, and you have such a high exit and people coming in. It's hard to develop that culture of family or tribe or whatever have you. And again, if that's your thing, that's your thing, and that's just the way it's going to be until the market shifts, and it is happening where that model will die. It's inevitable because people are people and people want more interaction. We're tribal people, like that's what we do. We want to interact with other people. And I like that, knowing you, of course, you take that family approach and you bring in people and, you're going to have some people leave. And the approach that we take, we don't actively recruit people. If we have a good interaction with someone that we think that can fit our tribe, then we bring them in. It's an easy process. We're finding our lost tribe members is the way we look at it, right?
If I'm totally honest with you, I don't recruit either. I mean,
Yeah.
I used to be with another broker that was heavily on recruiting, and I was very heavy on recruiting because I was a coach for this broker, and so it was getting the numbers in. I mean, in like a year, we went from 40 to over 100, right?
Yep.
And so when I stepped out and I started my own, I was like, I don't want to do that anymore. I'm burned out on that, right? I don't want to do recruiting. So my mindset shifted to attracting. But even when you think about attracting the agents that you want to come to your brokerage, when you get in those interview sessions, your mind still shifts to recruiting. That's a constant battle I have because I did so much recruiting in my life that I'm not thinking about attracting when they're in front of me. I'm in that recruiting mindset. So I'm saying
Yeah.
some of the recruiting things like what are they offering you, right? Which
Yeah.
really it shouldn't matter what they offering you. I should be focusing on what I'm going to offer you.
Correct.
Why do you want to work with Wilbur? Why do you want to partner with Wilbur and Next Home and that sort of thing, right?
Yeah, yeah, I agree, and because it's the same thing, in my opinion, when you work with clients, you got to evaluate: do you even want to work with them? Right? If it's a bad personality matchup, it's probably not going to work out very well, even if you get to the finish line. There's going to be a bad taste in everybody's mouth, and I've experienced this myself. I pushed through a transaction I shouldn't have, just because I wanted to close an extra transaction. That's when I was in a whole different mindset. So at the end of the day, I honestly didn't care if we became friends or not. Like, hey, look, you're getting the house you wanted. We're just calling it a day. I'm going to do everything possible to make you happy, but I don't really give a shit at the end of the day because you were a terrible person.
Right.
And, and when we come back and we talk to how to keep that business and that friendship separate, I think it takes a lot to really be honest with yourself and evaluate yourself and the person you're talking to. And again, setting those boundaries, I think, is everything. You know, especially whenever you're a broker owner. I mean, think of your company as a ship. You're the captain of the ship, and you know all your agents are the crew people, right? Mm-hmm. They're trying to find out where they're going, but they're also doing all the stuff to keep the ship together. And especially if you take on water or whatever, and they're working consistently at it, it's again setting the boundaries, the expectations. And I think we can do that with agents and clients. And that helps create that friendship. And, you know, I'm your friend at 6 p.m. It's 6:01 p.m., right? Before that, I'm your agent. And even ourselves, when we get into that comfort zone of I helped them close on a house, and now we're friends, we even take on that friendship personality constantly.
Right.
A lot of subconscious, we're just like, oh, we're friends with them. We're friends with them. And that's why, and I've had it happen, and like you said earlier, you've had it happen, where your past client starts using someone else because you're just a friend now.
Right.
We all slip on it, right? And that, I think that's something that we need to work on. And part of that working on is setting the boundaries, setting expectations. It really will help and prevent that. You say, hey, look, Monday through Friday, 9 to 6, I'm your agent. The weekend when we're going out and have wings, then we're cool. But I think reminding yourself and them is paramount.
What about longevity? Like I've been in the business 15 plus years, and I've amassed X number of sales, hundreds of the sales, and you know, again, I'm a relationship salesperson, and I built friendships through transactions. And how do you keep up with it? Because what I find is when you make friendships, people get offended, right? If you end up, because Facebook, everybody's social right now. So you end up at X client's birthday party, but you don't show up at other clients' birthday party because you were busy, right? Or you're working or whatever. So you can't touch them all. And we know that more people would actually go back to the same agent, right?
Yep.
But our follow-up sucks as agents, right? Our follow-up sucks. So not only does the follow-up suck, but people get offended because you were Wilbur, the great agent, and you know, I always hate if I run into the grocery store and I see you, but I haven't followed up with you, and you say, "Are you still in real estate?" And it's like, damn, I messed up, right? So,
Dropped the ball on that one.
so how do you keep that friendship going? And I don't know, do you have a system you use? Keep it going, and because you do have to get systematic at a point. Like I've sold hundreds of houses to hundreds of people in this area, so and a lot of people know me. A trip to the grocery store is not just a trip to the grocery store to me, because I can't do like Prince and like put the makeup on and try to disguise myself.
I kind of want to see that. Like, I want to see a scarf wrapped around and like some big thick glasses.
Because if I walk into the grocery store, 2 or 3 people are going to stop me and talk to me, right? Because I've sold them a house in this area. So how do you keep that going?
For me, I would always, and this is going to sound a little harsh, but it's just the way to keep the direction, is I would rank my clients, right? Like, how close was I to them? How did we have a great, amazing rapport where we're now friends and we talk on a regular basis? And any client, whenever we're out and we're working with each other, you know, we're working together as a team, I would always remind them, hey, I don't work for you, you don't work for me. This is a team effort, what we're doing.
Great point.
And the more I got to know them, like, hey, when's your birthday? And I'm asking these questions because what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a calendar. It's called a client calendar. And each client has their own calendar in my Gmail account with important dates on it, right? That's not going to happen to everybody. If the rapport's not there and it's just kind of like investors, for example. Investors are just by the book numbers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We can be cool, but we're not that cool, right? So I think it comes down to a matter of, and again, I'm not trying to sound like a little distant, but picking and choosing, right? And then if you do run into the client that you actually liked and you just drop the ball, own up to it. I think more and more we need to own up to that responsibility and say, hey, damn, I dropped the ball. I'm so sorry. I just got busy. And, You know, you don't have to make excuses, but like I honestly got busy.
Right.
I know I went through it with COVID. Whenever that happened, I literally lost contact with clients because I was trying to figure out my own crap.
Right.
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 And whenever I finally come back to it and I call them, I'm like, hey, I'm so sorry. How are you? You know, I'm catching up to them. I don't want to sell them anything. I just want to make sure they're okay. And
Right.
for you, if you meet them in a grocery store, just be like, hey, I'm sorry, my bad. I screwed up. You know, are you okay? How's things going? How's the family? Or if they have a family, you know, whatever have you. But I think it's really, you got to get systematic with it, like you mentioned. It's
Yeah.
Mine was a Google Calendar, and if you a CRM, you can do this. Put birth dates and reminders, and you know a lot of people use KV Core now. That's what that's for. It's so you can remember, and then the good clients that you've had such a damn good connection with, go to their birthday parties.
That's right. So,
Because if they post it on social media, the not so tight clients will see them like, hey, why aren't you at my birthday party? Well, when's your birthday? You just created a contact point.
there you go.
No, I
So
think it's fantastic.
the honesty of the whole thing is that this is how you create raving fans, right? So when you give people the experience that they remember forever, right? You're gonna get those referrals. No matter who you go to, if you start talking to someone about real estate and they say, "Hey, Liam Pierce, my guy," right? I'm not gonna do nothing in real estate without Liam because he is a friend of mine and he created this experience, and I know he looked after me. I mean, breaking through that trust wall in the beginning is tough, but once you've broken through it and you created that relationship, it is great for you as an agent as well as for your business, right?
Yeah, yeah. I, if one takeaway I would say out of this for people is really to just, you know, set those expectations, set the boundaries. That way you don't ever fall into the friend zone, as we've all been there. And really understand the purpose of the clients, why they're buying the house, why they want
Right.
to sell the house, etc. And that way you can, you know, you understand on a personal level, but then there's also the professional aspect of how you can help them, right? And agents, you know, when you really want to cultivate, and that's really what I call it, is that cultivation and really being a human, like your background says, human over houses. I would say read the book Giftology. That book can change your whole perspective on how you approach this business. That way you're not on that rotational onto the next one, onto the next one. Because even though I'm out of real estate production, I'm still real estate licensed, I still have people reach out to me for referrals and send me referrals, and I pass them on to the team. I have one particular client where she sends me 20 plus transactions a year. And it's just because I've cultivated such a great relationship with her and her family. I've sold her family, her friends of friends and friends and friends of houses. And literally they just, if they're in a group and someone asks for Myrtle Beach Realtor, boom, I got about 10 tags in seconds.
Right.
And that's, you know, they know, even though I'm friends with them and I've gone to family events with them, they still know I'm the professional because I set those boundaries.
Right.
You know, if you're having me come to, you know, a birthday party on the weekend, I got the invite, I'm gonna show up. If we've had a great recourse relationship, I'm gonna show up, and they know I'm there as Liam, the non-realtor for that event. You know, but then they know the minute I'm back in my office hours, I'm the realtor.
Yeah. And I do want to tell everybody he gives great gifts, so you do want to invite him to your birthday party.
You know, I really want to see that gift on one of these episodes now that we're on video.
We might do that one episode.
All right. Hopefully we don't get sued for it. So, but yeah, I mean, what would you say? You know, so we're going to wrap up things, but what would you say is a big piece of advice? Just one thing that you can give to people listening on how to keep that friend zone from damaging you and your business.
I would probably say don't take it personal. I mean, it took me a while to get there, but even if they don't choose you, you still have a relationship there with that person, right? So they still know other people. They still can refer you other people. Even if they don't use you personally, don't take it personal. So, and actually I have a rule now. It's like certain people, I don't want them to pick me again, right? Because it's like my family is like if my brother was to call me now and say, "Hey, I need to buy a house," that's probably going to be a referral to somebody, right? So,
You
'cause
set boundaries.
right. So setting boundaries, right? So that's probably my takeaways is set the boundaries up front and don't take it personal. I mean, these people you're gonna sell them. You're gonna create great relationships with them. You would hope that they're gonna send you a lot of referrals and to use you again if they decide to sell their home. But sometimes it just doesn't happen, and that's okay too.
Yep, I love it. I absolutely love it. I think that's damn good advice. So to everybody that's listening, I would adhere to that advice.
Yeah, awesome.
All right, awesome. Well, I appreciate everybody coming and listening to our antics, and obviously, clearly, we're two crazy squirrels because we bounce all over the place. But if you listen careful enough, you will get the nut of knowledge. You like that? I just kind of created it on the fly.
I like that. I saw that was moving. I didn't even want to mess with it.
All right, awesome. Thanks again, everyone.
All right. Have a good day.